Have you been told that you need to be more strategic, but you honestly have no idea where to begin? Well, you're in the right place. My name is Dr. Patricia Thompson. I'm a corporate psychologist and executive coach, and in this video, I'm going to give you 5 quick tips that will help you to be more strategic at work. So first of all, let's start by talking about strategic thought. It's one of those things that when I talk to leaders or people who want to be leaders and ask them about it, they acknowledge that it's important, but when I ask them how much time they spend doing it, the typical answer that I get is, not enough time. And so if you're someone who knows that you should be more strategic and you know that you're not really putting a lot of effort into it, realize that you're in good company, because most of the people who I coach who are pretty successful acknowledge that they could spend more time doing it. So we've acknowledged that it's important. It's important to be thinking ahead so that you can plan, so that you can take a step back from the day-to-day and really make sure that what you're doing today goes into the future. But how do you do it? Well, so the first thing that I typically coach my clients is to set aside time for doing it. Because here's what happens. People have all these day-to-day things coming to them. They have, meetings that they have to attend. They have unexpected emergencies that are coming up at the workplace. They have their day-to-day to-do list. And so, something like strategic thinking that can feel less tangible and doesn't have deadlines per se can be something that always falls to the bottom of the list. And so if you want to be more of a strategic thinker, you've got to be intentional about setting time aside to do it on your calendar. You could start with just an hour a week. Think about when you're fresh, when you can put your thought into it, and just block it out on your calendar and protect that time. And then if you find that that time is valuable for you and you want to add a little bit more, then do that. But start with something doable so that you'll feel like it's not too onerous. And also it will be less likely that you'll, schedule over it with other stuff that you would rather do or not rather do that seems more pressing. Okay, so now that you've set aside that time, what do you do during that time? Well, one thing that I recommend is based on a saying I've heard that says, "Are you too busy chasing your cows to build a fence?" Basically what that means, are you so busy kind of going after fire drills and crises in the day-to-day that you're not dealing with the underlying issue that would prevent those emergencies and crises in the day-to-day? And so during the time that you've set aside for your strategic thinking, do things like thinking about, are there fences that you need to be erecting? Do you need to perhaps change a process that's creating inefficiency in the workplace? Or do you need to train your staff a little bit better so that they can support you more effectively in the work that you need to get done? If there are crises coming up that are as a result of conflicts with other departments, do you need to reach out to those departments and start to work on those relationships or talk about ways that you can create more efficiencies? And those are just some examples. But the big picture here is to think about, emergencies that are coming up or inefficiencies, and then take a step back to think about what you can do about them so that you can be more effective and successful at the work that you're doing. So for tip number 3, another thing that I recommend in terms of using your strategic thinking time is for learning. The best people who are strategic tend to be intellectually curious. They're always reading or listening to podcasts or, having different ideas and approaches that they're exposing themselves to so that when they have to be creative in the workplace, they have all these different areas from which they can pull. And so during your strategic thinking time, you might spend time reading or taking an online course. I've got plenty of them. Check them out on my site at silverliningpsychology.com. They might listen to podcasts. They might set up informational interviews with other people in the business, perhaps, to learn more about their areas. But they're always asking questions and being sponges for knowledge. The more you know about your business, the better off you're going to be in terms of thinking strategically. But interestingly, the more you know, just in general, the more information you can draw on that might help you to come up with innovative solutions in your own business. So tip number 4 builds on this idea of being intellectually curious, and it's to seek advice from other people. And this is so important because, sorry to tell you this, but you don't know everything. We all have biases and blind spots that can really have an impact in terms of what we're thinking and how we're looking at things. Due to something called confirmation bias, we're more likely to weigh information more heavily that confirms what we already think. And so running your ideas past other people can really be a good way to shake that up and enable you to consider things that you hadn't already thought about. I think we can think of plenty of examples of things that got rolled out from organizations that totally fell flat. And it was because maybe they hadn't run the idea past diverse people who were different from them, or they hadn't vetted it adequately. And so by getting different people's perspective, again, it broadens your viewpoint. And by broadening your point of view, that'll help you to also be more strategic in analyzing information. The next tip is to get familiar with trends. And obviously, strategic thinking has a lot to do with thinking about what's happening now and using that to make predictions about the future so that you can plan. But if you don't understand the metrics in your business, then it's going to be a lot harder to do. And so if you're someone who, isn't very familiar with statistics or feels a little bit intimidated by it, then make sure that you talk to someone who can help you to learn it. Or again, there are a lot of online courses out there. And that'll give you more confidence in your ability to really be able to get into the data and understand what it's saying. And then make sure that you understand the metrics that are specific to your business. So, if you're someone who has never quite understood budgeting and finance, again, that's something you're going to want to learn about. Or if there are other statistics that are relevant, like, workforce planning or, training metrics or employee engagement or things along those lines, then get yourself really familiar with those so that you can make intelligent predictions based on them. The other thing is, once you've looked at the trends and see what's happening there, then use those to think about what do those suggest in terms of 1 year from now or 5 years from now. And again, if you've been curious and you've been reading and you've been learning different things, you'll be able to make more educated guesses based on that. And then once you've made some predictions, run it past some people. Ask them, what do you think about this? Does this make sense? What's your opinion about what might likely happen? All of that, again, will just help you to get a more comprehensive view in terms of thinking about the information and help you to be a more strategic thinker. And I said there were going to be 5 tips at the beginning of this video, but I just wanted to add one bonus tip. And that is to really learn how to communicate strategically. Because you could have the most well thought out plan and process, but if you're not able to communicate it in a way that people can follow, then they might underestimate your ability to think strategically. And so it can be really helpful to start with a big picture, kind of let people know where you're going, and then give the facts to back it up. But make sure that you're communicating in a logical way, right? So it can help to think it through ahead of time, and then kind of bullet point it so that people can follow it, and then summarize to tell them what you told them. But if you're someone who, prefers to speak off the cuff, then you might find that you have a harder time conveying that you've really thought about things in a thoughtful and intentional way. So learn to think strategically. Speak strategically, get feedback from others so they can help you to fine-tune your speaking style, and that'll also be key for letting others know that you're thinking strategically. Okay, so anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you found some tips that'll be helpful for you to be a more strategic thinker. Again, I'm Dr. Patricia Thompson, and if you would like to learn more about working with me one-on-one as a coach or a lot of the online courses I offer, make sure to visit me at silverliningpsychology.com. See you soon.